Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we try to turn that confusing financial anxiety into, well, knowledge you can actually use. Today, we're addressing something that causes a lot of stress for people: credit checks. Specifically, we're diving deep into the two main types, hard pulls and soft pulls, and crucially, figuring out how they fit into, keeping your financial life healthy.
Yeah, that anxiety is definitely real. It feels like every time you click apply online, you might be secretly hurting your credit score, right?
Yeah.
But our mission today is really to swap that fear for facts. We want you, the listener, to feel confident and strategic when you're applying for things. The main thing to get your head around is the difference between a formal application for credit, that's the hard pull, and just informational checks, which are soft pulls.
Okay, but before we even get into the nitty-gritty, let's just tackle that big fear head on.
Exactly. So here's the key thing. A hard pull can feel a bit scary, sure, but the actual effect is usually pretty small, maybe a few points, and it's temporary. But knowing the rules, especially around shopping for loans, is absolutely vital if you want to minimize any impact and, stay in control.
All right, let's unpack this then, starting with the basics. Where does all this credit information actually live? And why do these credit bureaus hold so much power?
Right. So credit bureaus or CRAs, credit reporting agencies, they're basically data companies. They collect and research information about how individuals handle credit. Then they package it up and sell it to lenders who use it to decide whether to give you credit. The key takeaway here is that they inform the decision. They don't make the final call. They're assessing risk based on your past actions.
And in the US, when we say credit bureaus, we're almost always talking about the big three, right?
Correct. That's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And here's something tactically important for you to understand. Your credit file isn't just one single document sitting somewhere. Because not every lender reports your payment history to all three bureaus, your reports can actually look a bit different depending on which bureau you check.
Yeah, that sounds tricky. It means I could look slightly different to different lenders.
That's the challenge, yeah. And that difference is exactly why we have two major credit scoring models, FICO and VantageScore. FICO came first back in 1989, and it's still the dominant one. Something like 90% of top lenders use FICO scores. VantageScore is newer. It was actually created by the three bureaus working together.
Okay, two systems. But you mentioned how they calculate the score is different, and that sounds like a really crucial detail for understanding your own profile.
Absolutely critical. The defining difference is which data they use. FICO generates a score using data from only one credit bureau at a time. This means you could actually have three different FICO scores, one based on your Equifax report, one on Experian, and one on TransUnion. VantageScore, on the other hand, pulls data from all three bureaus to calculate a single score.
Wow, okay. So let's say I paid off a big loan, but maybe that lender only reported it to Experian and TransUnion. If a new lender then pulls a FICO score based only on my Equifax data, they wouldn't see that improvement. I could get a lower score just because of that.
That is precisely the risk.
Yeah.
If good information isn't on the specific report they pull for that FICO score, yeah, your score could be lower than it perhaps should be for that lender. It really highlights why checking all three of your reports regularly is smart financial hygiene, not just something you do when there's a problem.
Fascinating. Okay, so we know who has the data and that it can be fragmented. Let's talk about actually looking at it. If the scores can vary and are sensitive, what happens when I check my own credit? Or maybe when my current bank takes a peek? Does that hurt my score?
Good question. That brings us neatly into the score-safe zone. Let's talk about the soft inquiry, sometimes called a soft check or soft pull. A soft inquiry happens when you check your own credit, or when a company looks at it for informational reasons only. The absolute key is that it's not tied to a specific application for new credit, and because of that, it has absolutely zero effect on your credit score. None.
Okay, so these are the checks we shouldn't worry about, maybe even use strategically. What are some common examples?
Well, the most common one is you checking your own credit report or score. Lots of credit card companies give you free access now, maybe monthly. Also, when your current creditors review your account, they might do a soft pull periodically just to see if your risk profile has changed. And pre-screening, that's another big one.
Pre-screening. Right, that's when you get those pre-approved credit card offers in the mail.
Exactly. The banks are doing a soft pull on lots of people to see who fits their criteria for an offer. And here's a quick win for you. If you're tired of that junk mail, you can actually opt out. Go to optoutprescreen.com. You can stop most of those offers. It's a direct action you can take.
Good tip. What about job hunting? If a potential employer wants to run a background check that includes credit, is that also a soft pull?
It is typically a soft pull, yes, so it won't affect your score. But importantly, there are strict rules around this under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the FCRA. An employer must get your written permission before they can pull your credit report for employment purposes. So you have control there.
Okay, so soft pulls don't hurt the score. Do they show up on the report at all? Are they invisible?
No, they are listed on your credit report, but mainly for your own information, for transparency. TransUnion, for example, specifically says that only you, the consumer, can see the soft inquiries listed. A potential lender pulling your report for an application won't see them.
All right, that definitely gives some peace of mind about checking your own status. But now, let's get into the one that makes people nervous. The hard inquiry, or hard pull. This is the one that signals something more serious is happening. What makes it different?
Okay, yeah, the hard inquiry. This happens when a lender checks your full credit report because you have formally applied for new credit. So think mortgage, car loan, new credit card, maybe even some rental applications or cell phone contracts. You're asking for credit or a service based on credit, and they need to do their due diligence, their underwriting, and this requires your explicit permission.
And this is the one that causes the score to dip. We often hear it's what, around 5 points? But hang on, 5 points doesn't sound like much, unless maybe you're right on the edge between good and excellent credit. Then 5 points feels huge.
It can definitely feel huge in those situations, you're right. If you're borderline, every point counts. While the dip from a single hard inquiry is usually small, like you said, maybe around 5 points, the key is context and duration. The good news is the dip is temporary. Hard inquiries stay listed on your report for 2 years, but they typically only affect the calculation of your score for the first year.
But why does applying for credit signal risk in the first place? It seems counterintuitive, like you're being penalized just for shopping around.
It's less a penalty and more. The scoring model, interpreting behavior patterns. Applying for new credit suggests you might be taking on more debt soon, which could change your overall risk profile, like your credit utilization or your monthly obligations. Where it becomes a potential red flag for lenders is the frequency and volume of inquiries.
Okay, tell me more about that volume aspect.
Well, if someone racks up a lot of hard inquiries, say 6 or more in a really short period, lenders might see that as a sign of potential financial distress, like maybe someone's desperately trying to get cash or is overextended. Statistically, data shows that people with numerous recent inquiries are, unfortunately, more likely to have trouble paying bills later or even declare bankruptcy. The model tries to flag that potential risk.
So, applying for credit isn't something to do casually. It needs a bit of thought and timing.
Absolutely. And a crucial heads up, if you ever check your credit report and see a hard inquiry from a lender you don't recognize or for an application you didn't make, that's a major warning sign. Contact that lender and the credit bureau immediately. It could be a sign of identity theft.
Okay, that's important. So let's circle back to that idea of shopping around, especially for big things. What if I'm looking for the best rate on a mortgage or a car loan? Does every lender I talk to hit me with a separate hard pull that dings my score each time? That seems unfair if I'm just trying to be a smart consumer.
You've hit on a really critical point, and thankfully, the scoring models have a built-in solution for this. It's often called deduplication, or having rate shopping windows. Basically, to avoid punishing you for doing exactly what you should do, comparing rates on major loans, the models are designed to treat multiple inquiries for certain loan types as just a single event, scoring-wise.
Okay, that's the practical advice we need. Which loans get this special treatment, and what's the time frame? How long do I have?
Right, the special window applies specifically to mortgage loans, auto loans, and student loans, not usually credit cards, mind you. For the most common FICO scoring models, they typically group together all inquiries for the same loan type, like mortgages, made within a 45-day period. They treat that whole cluster of inquiries as just one single inquiry when calculating your score.
45 days. That's actually pretty generous. That gives you a good month and a half to shop around with different banks or lenders without worrying about multiple hits to your score. So let me check. I've got this. I apply for a mortgage pre-approval on day 1. Lender pulls my credit. That's one inquiry potentially impacting my score. Then I apply with 5 more lenders over the next few weeks, say finishing by day 30. All those extra checks. They don't add new score damage. It all counts as that first hit.
Exactly right. You get the impact of one inquiry for that whole shopping period within the 45 days. However, if you got that first mortgage check on day 1 and then applied for another mortgage on day 50, that second one falls outside the window. The scoring model would then likely see it as a new, separate hard inquiry, potentially causing a second small dip. So that 45-day clock is important.
And the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, backs this up. They want people to shop around.
Yes. They confirm this is how it works, precisely so consumers aren't discouraged from seeking the best terms. And there's actually one more little buffer. Many FICO models also ignore these specific inquiries: mortgage, auto, student loan made in the 30 days before the score is calculated. It gives you a bit of a grace period at the very beginning of your search, too.
That's really helpful context. So the clear strategy for big loans is get your applications concentrated within about a 6-week period to minimize the score impact. Use the system's own rules to your advantage.
That's exactly the way to approach it strategically.
Okay, great. We've dug into the polls themselves. Let's shift focus slightly. We know the credit bureaus hold this data, but what information is actually missing from these reports? And what rights do we have as consumers over this whole process?
That's a really important angle. It's crucial to know what the report doesn't show, because it highlights its limitations. Your credit report doesn't include your income, for instance, or how much money you have in the bank, or your investments. It also doesn't list your marital status, your education level, or anything about your medical history. And maybe surprisingly, the report itself doesn't even contain your credit score number. Lender's Calculator purchased that separately using the report data. It's purely a record of your debts and payment habits.
So the bureaus really only have one slice of your financial picture. What about getting access to see that slice? How often can we look?
You have very clear rights here, thanks again to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the FCRA. That law is your main source of power. It mandates accuracy and gives you rights. By law, you are entitled to get a free copy of your credit report from each of the big 3 bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, at least once every 12 months. The official website for this, the only one authorized by federal law, is annualcreditreport.com. Free, once per year from each.
And checking it yourself is a soft pull, as we said. So you check it, and maybe you find a mistake, something wrong, maybe even damaging. What then?
Finding errors is more common than you might think. If you spot something wrong, like an account listed that isn't yours, or a debt showing as unpaid when you know you paid it off, you have the absolute right to dispute it. You file a dispute with the credit bureau showing the error. They are legally required to investigate it, usually within 30 days, and correct any proven inaccuracies. This right to dispute is maybe the most powerful tool you have to ensure your report is fair and accurate.
Okay, and one last thing on control. For people really worried about identity theft or maybe just wanting maximum security, is there a way to just lock down the whole report?
Yes, there is. It's called a credit freeze, or sometimes a security freeze. This is basically the ultimate defense. When you place a freeze on your credit report, it prevents almost anyone from accessing it for the purpose of opening new credit. Since most lenders won't approve a loan or credit card without pulling your report first, a freeze effectively stops fraudsters from opening accounts in your name.
That sounds like a really strong protection. Any catches?
The main thing is logistics. You have to contact each of the 3 major bureaus separately to place the freeze. And importantly, you also have to contact each one separately to temporarily lift or permanently remove the freeze if you need to apply for credit yourself. But for the peace of mind it offers against identity theft, many people find it well worth the effort.
Fantastic. Okay, let's do a quick recap then. Hard pull. Happens when you formally apply for credit. Causes a small, usually temporary score dip. Watch out for too many in a short time. Soft pull, informational only. Checking your own score, pre-approved offers, background checks with permission, 0 impact on your score. And don't forget that crucial 45-day rate shopping window for mortgages, auto loans, and student loans. Group your applications together.
Exactly. And maybe a final thought to tie it together. Yes, the credit bureaus are powerful, and yes, they are regulated by the FCRA. But remember, they're synthesizing risk based only on the data they have. You have more influence over that data and the context around it than you might realize.
Right. While the bureaus track your payment history, and most lenders use FICO scores based on that history, think about everything they don't know. Your income, your savings, your assets, your whole financial life picture. That information, that context is still yours. And knowing the rules, knowing your rights to access and dispute, and using tools like the credit freeze, it really puts you back in the driver's seat. You shift from just being subject to a score to actively managing your financial reputation.
Well said. Thanks for diving deep with us today.